So your research attitude has to be appropriately framed. For that, the best way is read. That is the only thing one can improve his research skills. Reading, and of course, critical thinking capacity or analytical capacity that will automatically it comes with it.
Hello and welcome, my dear friends. Today we are back with SuperLawyer YouTube interview. We will be taking this with Dr. Vishnu S Warrier, who is a distinguished Indian legal expert and an author with a PhD and a master's in business law, along with UGC NET qualification. Oh my God, wow. His specializations are in competition law, intellectual property law, and he has earned various certifications through WIPO as well. He has over 14 years of experience as an in house legal counsel. His proficiency extends to providing legal advice to various departments, handling commercial transactions, and ensuring compliance with policies. Thank you, Vishnu sir, for being here. And he is also a cricketer as well. We'll be picking up a lot of questions around it, how you have built your practice and how you have made yourself such a big name. Your remarkable contribution in legal field are widely recognized and we all know about it. What led you to choose law after having a science background? And what was the motivation in moving forward and learning so much?
Well, first of all, thank you for this opportunity to share some of my thoughts in your platform. And I am not sure whether I can really say that I'm from a science background because I studied science only up to 12th standard. So that was all basic science. But the reason for me to choose law was like that was a period when all my peers were going either for engineering or medicine. So the competition is very high. At the same time, if you really want to do something special, so we need to do something other than what others do. And law is such noble profession. And on those days, to be precise, there was a lot of areas in which legal professionals are yet to explore, and our country was also emerging. And there are a lot of industries coming up. Even when I joined law, many of the seniors or relatives used to ask us why you choose law, because getting a successful lawyer by practice is one of the toughest thing, and at least 5 to 7 years you may have to struggle. So that is true, because that was only one concept which was available to then generation. But I was fortunate that some of my teachers and my parents who guided us, they have given me absolute freedom to choose the profession in which you want to go. When I discussed with my parents specifically, because my grandfather was a lawyer, so I asked whether I should be choosing law as a career. Only thing is that I know the fact that tomorrow when I practice, it will take some time. But they have guided me like, okay, if you are really keen on that subject, you go it. And tomorrow you should not say that, okay, this selection of this particular profession was not correct. So if you are really keen on that, then go for it. That was one part. And the legal profession has got its own dignity in the society. So that is something when we say that, because entire society gives you respect. And those days, even the police people, when we see that the police people comes to the lawyer and say sir, because the general public calls them sir. On the other side, they comes to the lawyer and address you as sir. And also we have an opportunity to become judges, we have an opportunity to deliver justice. So it is an institution, or the judiciary, only a lawyer can get into that. And another thing is that this profession gives you an absolute freedom. If you're a practicing lawyer, it is up to you to choose whether you should take a case or not. If you want to chill out, you take a break, you go. If you ask a practicing lawyer now, they will say that that is true, but still even on vacations we may have to file some cases. And so that is also one part. In other words, when we call a profession, I believe that it is something that you should have the liberty to choose your work time. So this is a profession which gives us that liberty. It gives also the respect, and it also will help us to get involved with the society, because we say that man is a social animal. Legal profession is such a profession where you have an absolute liberty and you always involve and connect with the society. Though we call it our work, it will help someone else be happy. One quote which later inspired me is that if you have a problem, you feel free to share with us, because you don't have to fight it alone. We will be there to defend your case. So that is absolutely the strength of this profession. So the beauty of that profession is what actually attracted me to this profession. And yes, science background, though I studied very little science, but it helped me a lot. Like in science, you need everything point by point, minute and critical analysis, problem solving. Basically, the problem solving and critical analysis is something which a science graduate or science professional will be looking into. That was one of the issue which I faced even during my first 2 years of LLB days, where we need to write our exams. So in my first 2 years, if you see that I will be writing only points, but that was not actually necessary on those days. But that was something which I learned as a part of my science background. But in a way, critical thinking and problem solving has got some impact.
It's actually true. Science graduates or science background student, they are told to write only in points because we are used to doing it in a critical analysis system. So to write that lengthy answers has always been a problem for many of the science people. After completing law school, you also pursued LLM, that too in business law, and then PhD in competition law. What sparked your interest in choosing these areas of law? And at that time, when you started doing all this, how have they influenced your professional journey also? Because I assume that you must have been practicing at that time as well.
Not really. I'm someone who straight away got into corporate service soon after my LLM. So I studied my graduation from University of Mysore, and during my college days, I was an active sports person in our college team and all. Cricket, table tennis, and chess were my three areas where I used to represent my institution. To be frank, up to ninth semester, I was literally enjoying the college life, sports, and other activities. So I have done my 5 year integrated LLB. When you reach the final semester, literally I was on the crossroad. So we have only another 6 months to complete our course. So what is next? So that was the major question which I faced myself, whether I should be going for practice or I should be going for higher studies. If for higher studies, what should be the area? Because some of my friends and my classmates, they were all parallelly doing company secretaryship. Some of them were doing CA along with their course, and a few of them were truly passionate towards teaching. They already set their mind that after LLB, I'll go for LLM, then I'll go for PhD. And but for me, it was not the case, and I was not keen to practice. That was another thing. So these are the thought process which were going. At the same time, in the final semester, we had this courtroom exercises, and we have advocates office visits and all these practical papers which we had. Also, I had an opportunity to intern with one of the IT firm. So the internship or the association with the IT industry actually helped me understand what actually I wanted. So because there I had an opportunity to draft or review certain kind of agreements. There I had an opportunity to get into the practical aspects of how copyright works, or what is the significance of intellectual property in an industry, specifically in IT industry, and how trademarks are helpful in a business industry. Then I realized that even if I look at my mark sheet, the papers which are connected to corporate laws seems to be scored as compared to other regular papers. So then I thought that okay, let me give a try. Anyway, I was not at all interested in practicing law soon after my LLB days. And those were the days where the first batch of CLAT got into National Law School. There was a common law entrance came up, and I had an opportunity to appear before the second batch of CLAT examination, and fortunate enough to get into NLIU Bhopal because I wanted to specialize in IPR specifically. But in Bhopal at that time, it was LLM General with a specialization of business law. But in that business law, when I checked, yes, we had a specific paper called IPR, and that paper was also taught by one of the eminent professor Gayur Alam sir. He was also one of the IPR chair. So I was fortunate enough to get into that prestigious institution. I was lucky to be a student of many of the great scholars of that great institution, and that is what actually in connection with my LLM admission. But once I completed LLM, I had a clear idea that I will be going to corporate. And again, whether to practice or not is another question. But I had decided that I will not go for practice. I will go for a corporate service because on those days, a lot of opportunities in the corporate sectors started coming. And I was lucky to got an offer from the company called Coromandel International. It's a fertilizer manufacturing company. So I started my career with them. After a couple of years, I switched to government service. Then I had an opportunity to work with Government of India public sector undertaking called HLL Life Care, which is into the healthcare sector, which comes under the Ministry of Health. Then I switched to Kochi Metro Rail Limited. It's a transporting industry. Now currently I'm working with the Cochin Shipyard Limited. So this is how I switched around the corporate sector. And among the four organizations, majorly I work with government sector, but everywhere the corporate law was my specialization. And I did my PhD along with my career. I didn't took a break. I joined PhD with Kerala University in the year 2018, where I had an opportunity to conduct my research on interplay between copyright and competition law with a specific focus on entertainment industry, where how the abuse of dominance exists in those specific industry. And among that entertainment industry, I further narrow down my research area to film industry with a specific focus. That is an industry which is very unorganized industry as compared to other industries, and it is an industry which contribute almost 20 percentage of our national GDP, but still it is unorganized. So that is an area where there are a lot of abuse of dominance, and most of the dominant players in those industry are copyright holders or IP holders. So my research focused on how the competition act can tackle them, because if you look at a film producer, because one of the criteria in the competition law is that in order to book someone under any of the offense under competition law, he should be a dominant player, especially when it comes to abuse of dominance. So when we say that the primary criteria is how to identify that an enterprise is a dominant player. And if you look at film industry, it is very difficult to identify a producer or an actor as dominant, because there are multiple alternatives available. One movie may be working for one person's interest, but that may not be working for the other person. So it is very difficult to identify. So in that area, which I focus specifically on the collective dominance, because that industry specifically works in a way that there is an association of artists, there is an association of producers, association of directors. So individually we cannot book them as a dominant player, but when they collectively comes together, they create a dominance in the industry, and they dictate terms on how the industry should work. And unfortunately there are not much guidelines or regulatory mechanism in that particular industry to regulate the conduct, because it's absolutely a creative industry. And also we can only say that once the creative idea is there, then you should get a certification to release it in the public. Apart from that, we don't have any strict guidelines there, and it is also not possible because the creativity comes from one person's ideas. So it is very difficult to regulate. And there are a lot of similar loopholes or gaps which is there in the industry, but still there are anti-competitive practices. How we can bring in that anti-competitive practices within the purview of competition law, and ultimately the industry should be working fairly, so that at the end of the day we or the audience should be in a position to watch better movies. And so that is the ultimate aim. So my focus was on that, and I was able to successfully defend my thesis and got awarded the PhD last year. And it was specifically for, I identified an area where it is called collective dominance. There are many cases which has come before various authorities where the collective dominance has been discussed, but unfortunately our existing competition act doesn't have a provision which deals with collective dominance, because it is not been identified or it is not addressed as an anti-competitive practice. So my thesis actually suggested an amendment to the competition act where how the collective dominance should be considered and to what extent. So that was all about my PhD experience.
What a beautiful explanation. And yes, collective dominance is a key player in copyright in US, especially. This I know because one of my professors of copyright had done his LLM in musical copyright, and that too way back in I think 1990s, when nobody even had heard about copyright. So these were the stories we heard from him, that they were talking about collective dominance at that time, and now still we do not have that. I cannot stop myself but ask you, when you are talking about film industry, which is unorganized even today after so many years, how has that understanding of competition law in film industry? Obviously, competition law will work in the similar fashion as antitrust or as in any other corporate field. How has that helped you understand the same kind of dominance, be it collective or individualistic or monopolizing the whole system? How has it made sure that you understand this difference in government sector also? And the competition between government and private, because you work for government, that's why I'm asking, but you are not working in film industry, you have a different industry altogether. Your PhD had a different focus, but understanding is same. So I would request you to share that knowledge, and if you can possibly compare that knowledge in between public and private, because we have a lot of public private partnerships which work today. And yes, competition is there, but how do you take care of it when you are in that particular position?
In every PhD research or any other research, we need to narrow down our research to a minimum minute sector, and we need to identify the research problem in that area, and we need to come up with a solution. So that is one approach we have in our research. And when we speak about competition issues, when initially we start our research, the initial idea was to identify the issues in the copyright related abuse of dominance. So when we do our literature survey and after 1 year, as we progress, so again, we will reach at a point where, because copyright is such a wide area, and in that, again, we need to narrow down our research scope into certain area. And it is always better when we are planning for a research, or when we are planning to write any book, or when we are planning to specialize in anything, it is always better that we identify such an area where we have very limited resources, or very limited research is done, or very limited authorities are there. That will help you not only in your career, but also it will help the community where your contributions will be vital. And if you are getting specialized in an area in the very early stage, by the time they establish, automatically you will get recognized as one of the authority. So that was a reason. And film industry specifically had a lot of issues because it got recognition even as an industry only in early 2000s, only in the 21st century. And in this, if we'll see that the industry is here in India for almost last 100 years. So in spite of that industry being, and we are the country which produce, if I'm right, the largest number of movies in a year, and that industry contribute almost 20 percentage of our GDP. In spite of all these points, we recognize it as an industry very off late, and still there are a lot of area there is no specific regulatory mechanisms to control how the film has to be made or how the creative works to be generated. Of course, there are some legislations which supports in connection with the registration of movie or certification, or how the working environment in the, because Posh Act has come, to the safety of woman artist or any other person who is connected with the movie industry. Those things are there, but still, when it comes to creative mind, it is up to the producer to choose that whether I should be choosing that particular actor or I should be choosing the other one. So it is absolutely his freedom. At the same time, it has been misused in a lot of areas. Since it was totally an unorganized sector and there weren't much research on this area, I decided to choose film industry as my research sample. So that is only sample. My focus was specifically on to identify the concept of collective dominance, which is equally present in all other industries. Say, for example, one of the case which came up before the authority was in connection with Uber Ola case and Swiggy Zomato case, where we can say that the petitioner's claim was that Uber and Ola were collectively dominant and they were controlling the online taxi industry and they are abusing there. But that was a case where the action of these respondents or opposite parties may be anti-competitive, but unfortunately, our legal framework doesn't have that collective dominance as an offense within the. So it is outside the purview of competition perspective. So that was one of the areas. So it is equally applicable everywhere. The thing is that the dominance what we define is that a dominant player is someone who can act independently out of their competitors. So act in the present form address only those single entities who can act independently. They doesn't define the concept of collective dominance where two parties join together. That means if we are saying that there are two parties in the same industry, then they said there is already a competition, so there is no monopoly. So that was a concept which is currently available if we look at the Competition Act. But when parties join together, even the famous case, that cement cartel case, where the cement industries joined together and hike the price. Similarly, we have that spare part case of around 17 automobile industries joined together and they reduce the supply of spare parts to the independent individual service providers. So they are all can be considered within the purview of collective dominance. And though it can be parallelly say that there is a cartel, but when we specifically say that it is a collective dominance, then it will be difficult to get the justice. So for that, our act needs to be amended. In the European Union, yes, the concept has been well recognized and appropriate actions are also being taken. And hopefully very soon India will also recognize on that aspect.
Fingers crossed that happens soon so that we can have at least the understanding of this particular concept of dominance itself. You have also written numerous number of books. I have a couple of them on my bookshelf as well, including arbitration, conciliation, and
Thank you so
mediation
much.
book and
Thank you.
understanding patent law. I enjoyed the simple language because obviously my specialization was also in IPR. As an author of so many books and different variety of books, it's not only one. You have actually addressed many facets of India's laws, especially in competition, patent, so many other aspects, including mediation as well. With the advancement of the kind of technology that we are facing right now, especially AI, disruptive tech, and there are so many others, blockchain and all. How do you see is our digital market going to be, and how do you envision this specific competition law will evolve as you are again and again saying that we have to have a different understanding for competition law itself. Law has to change according to that. How do you envision that change, and what kind of challenges do you anticipate that are going to come up with the advent of this kind of technology taking over, I would say? And maybe that may be a little aggressive word, but then it is happening and it is going to happen. So, how do you see that is going to impact our legal industry, and how soon do you see or feel that competition law will take action, competition commission will take action, and something will happen?
Digital marketing or the digital world is an emerging area in Indian market because we are the largest country in terms of population with more than 140 crores. So that is the advantage of any business organization because if you are in a position to do your business successfully in India, they can rule the world. And digital marketing, especially after COVID and all, we can see that everybody started using online platforms in one way or other. And earlier we had only the physical markets and we had very few courier services or whatever in that format. But now at the click of a button, you can buy anything from anywhere in India and you will get it delivered within a short span. And all these platforms, say for example, the giants like Amazon or Flipkart. Similarly, we have the social media in the digital market. So that is also another digital market. We need to see everything because whenever we come up with any competition issue, the competition act or the competition authorities will look whether that particular organization in which relevant market. The term relevant market is very important because Indian market in general we can say that, but when it comes to in Indian market, generally we can classify the market into two, where physical markets and the digital markets. When it comes to online market, again there is another keyword which we need to look into is relevant product. What product or service you are going to offer? So in that particular relevant product and that particular relevant product market, how your marketing strategy or your business operation impact the consumers as well as your competitors. Assuming that you are the only one manufacturer or the service provider in that particular relevant product market or the relevant service market, and if you are the only one organization or entity offering such kind of product or service, then automatically it will give you some kind of monopoly in that market. The second thing is that so you are a monopoly. Becoming a monopoly is not an offense under the Competition Act because you can become a dominant player because that is absolute freedom which a country offers to the business community, that you perform well and earn more. But only thing is that it has to be in a free and fair and transparent manner. So when your business operations uses some strategy which are adversely impacting on consumers or it will be adversely affecting the competitors, because you have absolute liberty to come up with your business strategy and do your business, but that strategy should not have an appreciable adverse impact on the market. It should not affect the competition. It should be healthy. It should be fair, your strategies. because competition commission is always watching the market, how industry works. And now recently they have come up with some report on the film industry also. They have come up a report because they are parallelly watching all the industries. And the presence act, what we say, that it is only a framework. It is a framework which can be applied to all the industries across India, and it has got certain extraterritorial jurisdiction aspects as well. But again, coming back to digital market, because today is a knowledge driven economy. We are all going through a knowledge driven economy. And if we look at all these digital platforms, the data which is being holding by those platform owners are not created by them. It is all created by this 140 crore people, because we have an Android phone or Apple phone in our hand. And just have a look how many apps which we are having in our phone. So knowingly or unknowingly, we are sharing a lot of information to all these tech companies, and all these data are being analyzed by their team at their backend, and to what purpose they are actually using. If you look at platforms like YouTube, Facebook, or Instagram, the company which owns those platforms are not creating any content. It is all the customers who actually signed up to those platforms are creating. And irony is that if you look at YouTube, to the best of my understanding, there are two schemes. You can choose premium service where you will not be shown any ads, and if you prefer not to avail premium service, there will be ads. So in a way, they are getting revenue from the subscribers. On the other side, they are getting revenue from the advertisement as well. So that industry works in that way. So the data or the information which we share on these platforms are very crucial, and how they use that data is very much important. Whether they are using that data to become dominant player in that industry, that is okay. But whether there is a breach of any privacy or any other transaction in connection with that data without your permission, those data, if they are transferring to some other entity or some other purpose and gaining a revenue out of that, then those issues will definitely come into the concern of our enforcement agencies. And to that extent, I would say that though Data Protection Act recently came, Competition Commission has a lot of role to look into. Especially the digital market is an area where we cannot pinpoint one specific activity as a abuse of dominance or anti-competitive. So they have to be very vigilant on each and every activity, because one of the case which we see that Google was punished on the reason that there was an AdWords program where it offers anyone to advertise on Google platform. Whenever we search, connected ads used to be displayed. So I think it was some matrimonial site. I think they filed a petition where they say that some of the keywords which they gave their advertisement was not getting ranked in their search. So that was the issue. How those things can be identified by a common man, or the algorithm, how it works. Because Competition Commission being a watchdog of all these activities, they have to be very vigilant. And as the technology grows, the commission or the enforcement agencies should also equally grow to the extent that everything they will have control over. I mean, it only says that it has to be vigilant on the activities, and whenever there is an anti-competitive practice which we come across, then it has to be addressed appropriately. There are a lot of scope and hope. As the technology grows, our system also should grow fast, then only we can address both. And there should be a balance also, because another thing is that there is a general concept that the law is very strict. And yes, law is strict to those who actually try to manipulate things, but at the same time, innovation is also equally important. We should create a system where both innovation and law enforcement should have the balancing nature.
Absolutely true. Since you have brought up this privacy issue and the kind of data that we provide, the kind of processing that is happening outside the country and by the companies which are not even established in India, especially, they are well known, but they do not have their headquarters here. So, where data is going, how it was happening, no one knows. And even with Data Protection Act, now that you have brought in that topic and about intellectual property and the kind of copyright, where do you see that intersection point where all of this goes and has some direct connection with competition law? Because at the end of the day, all of these are monetization processes. So even IP management, IP monetization, or let's say even for data privacy, at the end of the day, privacy of that particular data will become a monetization point. So, where do you see that competition law can play a positive role? I won't say capping, but in making sure that no one goes above and beyond a certain framework so that it remains ethical and moral as well. Because there are certain times when we see that it becomes evident that it is no more moral or no more ethical. And I'm pretty sure you must have been hearing a lot about AI ethics and AI morality as well. So, in the same pedestal, how are we looking forward to having that intersection point and making sure that it remains ethical?
Yeah, that point is well defined in our legislation itself, because any activities should not have any appreciable adverse impact in our Indian market. So it is irrelevant that whether the entity or the enterprise is working, having a headquarters in India or they have a headquarters outside. But if any of their activity has got any adverse impact in Indian market, either by reducing competition or restricting entry to the market for other players to step in, and at the end of the day whether it is affecting the consumer interest, because the beauty of competition act is that the act actually is for the consumer interest at the, because it's a consumer welfare legislation, because in a market free and fair competition should be for the benefit of the consumer, where he will get value for money and he will get the best product or services. Whatever he spent, he should be in a position to get the best product or service. So it is a consumer welfare legislation, and any adverse impact to the consumer or the other competitors in the market, then the authority has got an absolute right to interfere in the matter and take action appropriately.
So we should be not only positive, we should be mindful also about what is going to happen and the way it is happening. Our legislation will take care of it. But only thing is we have to be aware of what is happening, because as you were talking about dominance and the collective dominance concept, which is yet to become a reality. You are also founder of Lex Warrior Law Journal and a frequent speaker at various conferences. What advice would you like to give the law learners, law students who are aiming to excel at both legal profession and legal research as yourself? Additionally, what resources would you recommend for them to be informed about the kind of developments in any particular field of law, especially competition law? How can one be abreast with the upcoming things, and how should they approach this whole system, whole way of bringing in not only change but change in their lives as well?
Well, for a lawyer, irrespective of whether the person is practicing in court or corporate law practice like me, or teaching profession or any other profession, research is one of the primary skill each lawyer should have, because in our day-to-day life we need to do research on a lot of areas. So research is key. So that skill has to be there for every lawyers, irrespective of their field of or areas of specialization. And how we approach research, because there are all WH questions which we need to look into all the research problems in all fields. We need to ask all those queries, and we should have a clarity on what is our research purpose. Say for writing an article, there are various methods of writing an article. So whether you are actually going to write an article on review of an existing system, or you are trying to identify a problem and you are planning to offer a solution, so your research attitude has to be appropriately framed. For that, the best way is read, read, read. That is the only thing one can improve his research skills. Reading, 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 and of course, critical thinking capacity or analytical capacity, that will automatically, it comes within. So once you read on the same topic, if you're taking a competition, any of the competition subjects, competition law subjects, if you read articles of different authors on the same topic, say abuse of dominance, one author may be putting it in his perspective, so that will be entirely different from the other person wrote. So if we read a lot of articles or a lot of materials, automatically it will trigger some kind of critical thinking within the reader, that it will start generating his own thoughts, what he actually understands. So the first thing for a researcher is to read a lot. Whatever you read, try to make some notes regarding that. If you are reading 10 pages, try to summarize it into one page. So that when you summarize it into one page, that is actually going to be your thought which you are going to write there. That one page should not be a copy paste from what you have read, or it should not be the abstract of that article which you should be taking. If you're reading a 10-page article, you might be understanding something out of that article. Try to pen down the one page. So that is actually your understanding on that subject matter. These exercises can be started right from the first year or first semester for law students. So gradually it will help us to improve our research skills. And still, though I had an opportunity to publish around 5 books and 10 to 15 articles, but I still feels that I still lack some skill, because it's always difficult for me to write, because most of the journals in India specifically ask for an article within a word limit of 8,000 words. So maybe around 15 to 20 pages. But since you have already reviewed my resume, most of my publications, if you see that in the initial phase of my career, I publish more books rather than the articles. So I prefer to write more in a more elaborative way. So it was one of the gap which I feel that now it is difficult for me to write an article in 15 page or 20 page. So that is something which I need to really work upon. Again, it's up to the author or the researcher to fix their limit, that to what extent you should go in that particular research paper. So all these WH questions has to be there, and we should have a clarity on the research problem and what this article or the book is going to serve. Also, we should keep an understanding that who is going to be your proposed audience, or who is going to be your reader. Suppose if you are planning to write an article for a law student, you should always try to explain the matters in a simple and elaborative way, because that was the approach which I adopted for writing my initial 3 books, arbitration and patent, where I tried to simplify the concept in a very simple language, because I stepped myself into the shoes of a law student who is for the first time reading a book. That was my idea. If I am the law student who is reading for the first time about patent law, I should be in a position to understand the concept. At least 50 percentage of what I read should be understood. But when we write an article for a reputed journal, we know the audience is on the other side. It is assumed that if I'm writing an article for competition law journal, it is an assumption that all those who read competition commission's journal on competition law has got the basic idea of competition law. So in those articles, you need not define or explain what is abuse of dominance or what is anti-competitive practices. There you can directly use the keywords and you can explain the things. So who is your audience and who is going to be your reader? That is a key area which you need to focus. That is how it is going to convince the reader. Because even if you are sending an article or a book manuscript to the editor will also have the same approach, because they have clarity on to whom their books or their journal is going to be circulated. There are many instances where, though I got some good publications, there are a lot of articles which got rejected for many of these reasons. Because some of them, they say that the articles got rejected, though the content and subjects are good, they will not serve to the readers whom they are circulating. So that is an area which we need to be very specific. And for a research skill, it is always read, and try to pen down whatever we understand. And it is not one thing which we can build in a day. Gradually, it gets built.
An absolutely amazing piece of advice. And if you are willing to write an article that big that it gets converted to a book, what an amazing piece of advice. Learners have to understand that it's much better to write a book and easy, I guess.
Yeah, that was my experience, which I feel more comfortable in writing a book rather than writing an article.
I assume the kind of research you did ended up making sure that you write the book, because the article became so big that it became kind of a book in itself. It's amazing.
Yeah,
It's an amazing advice.
what you said is very correct, because initially I wanted to write an article on big data. I started writing, but after I wrote it, and I went up to 123 pages. So, which I felt that it is not an article, it could be a book.
No, it can be an article. Certain journals actually entertain these big articles as well. I have read many, many of them. But the way you are explaining it makes sense to have it better explained in a book rather than just keeping it as an article, because that gives you a kind of authority in explaining things in your own way, the way you have done it in your patent law book, which I love. and at least the new learners definitely get to learn a lot from it because it is in very simple language, so you get the basic idea. It's like Kalyan sir's book as well, Ancient Law Landscapes in India. It's a beautiful book. So I enjoy these two books because they're so similar in fashion, because it's in absolute simple language, and for beginners it's easy. So while you are doing so much, you are professionally responsible for a government sector work, then you are managing your own life, then you are writing books, you are writing articles, you are giving lectures, you are doing so much. Then when do you get to have your hobbies and your passion take time, and how do you unwind yourself? Because obviously at the end of the day we are all human, and after such rigorous work, especially the one which involves this much research, how do you make sure that you have equal time for family as well? Because obviously that's also integral part of us.
See, it's all about how we prioritize our work. And I believe that every day we have 24 hours, of which, since I am working in a corporate sector and that too in a government sector, it is like we have a 8 hours or 9 hour work timing. So that was an advantage. But of course, there are various instances where even we have to stretch our timings. But it's all again how you want to be or what are your priorities. Work is important, at the same time life is also important, and other interest areas like be it research or be it sports, whatever it is. So everything we need to prioritize and work while you work. So that is a motto which I follow. You have 8 hours working schedule, there you concentrate purely on your work. Let us not mix your personal matters to work. At the same time, once you are out of your office, try not to mix the official matters with your personal affairs. So that was one approach which I follow. But it is not that throughout the year we cannot fully comply with all this, but mainly we can do that. And again, it is your mindset. Work and other life balance has to be there. So where to balance and where to draw that thin line, that is in our hands. So if you are able to do that, it will be possible because we have 24 hours, 8 hours work, 6 to 8 hours you sleep, still you have another 8 hours for your other activities to. So I feel if you are good enough to manage your time, you will be in a position to.
Thank you so much for giving such beautiful responses and explaining things in simplest language possible.
That was a point which we cannot say, there is no theory as such, and it's by practice only, and by practice also we cannot successfully communicate to the other person that okay, you do this because my priority may not be your priority, and that may not be the priority of other person. So generally we can say that's the only thing which we
I
and
really hope
prioritize.
we are going to get to see and read many more books from your side, because I do really hope that they will be as simple languaged as others are, and it will be a learning experience for learners and students to read and understand how it works. And it has been a beautiful experience interviewing you, having that conversation, and understanding how you can transition from having that critical analytical thought process to becoming a lawyer, to having a LLM degree, then a PhD degree, then having that particular research, implementing all of it in life and in profession. Absolutely beautifully done. Thank you so much, Vishnu sir, for being here and giving us so much of your time and your visions and your amazing enlightening thought process. Hope to see a lot of books and articles very soon from your side. Thank you, sir. And absolutely big time pleasure for me to interview you. Thank you so much. Thanks a lot for being here.
Thank you so much. Thanks for this opportunity and offering this platform for me to share some of my thoughts. And being one of the regular reader of Superlawyer, it was always a pleasure to be a part of this venture and happy that I got this opportunity. This is one of the best venture I have come across or I have seen, that guiding emerging lawyers is the important aspect which we need to look at, because there are certain things which we cannot learn from our law school days, which are not there in our law books, which we can earn only through internships or having an interaction with seniors. And even in that part there are high demand and competition even for getting an internship or getting into moot court competition or all those things. So in such a highly competitive world, these platforms play a vital role where it can guide or mold budding lawyers, and to certain extent even the practicing lawyers who wants to switch their profession or something. This information which this platform offers is very informative, and wish you all the best for all your future endeavors.
Thank you, sir. Thank you for your kindness and humbleness. Thank you so much once again.
Thank you so much.